On Newsline tonight, with the prospect of free elections on the way, could we see an end to communist rule in East Germany? Hello and welcome once again to Newsline, live here on Skype. Later in tonight's programme, David Bellamy gives us his reaction to Mrs Thatcher's speech at the UN today on the environmental crisis facing the whole world. But first, the quite breathtaking events in East Germany. Earlier this evening, a spokesman for the new Politburo, which took control today, seemed to hint that free elections could be on the way, a move which could theoretically end the Communist Party's stranglehold on the country. All this on the same day that the old Politburo had followed the example of its government and resigned. The move to free elections, if confirmed, would represent another stunning concession to the power of the people. But will it be enough to stop the street demonstrations and the exodus of East Germans to the west? And could we eventually see the dismantling of the Berlin Wall and a united Germany? Questions we'll be posing in a few moments. But first, a recap on the astonishing series of events that have resulted in East Germany taking these historic decisions. The buckling of communist power in East Germany has given fresh heart to the hundreds of thousands of Germans demanding an end to the strictest regime in the Eastern Bloc. Yesterday, the government went. Today, the party leader Egon Krenz accepted the resignation of the whole Politburo, the main decision-making body in East Germany. Later, state-run television announced that a new, smaller Politburo had been elected by the Communist Party's Central Committee. Among its members, Hans Modrow, who's been nominated as the new Prime Minister. Modrow is seen as a reformer in the Gorbachev mould, unlike Krenz, who represents the old guard. And tonight came more surprising news from Günter Schabowski, the head of the media in the new Politburo. He suggested that East Germany was working towards free elections. Under a new election law, he said, other political groups might be allowed to challenge the Communist Party for office, and it was likely that the opposition group New Forum would be officially recognized. Earlier, the West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl offered economic aid to his ailing neighbour if the communists moved towards Western-style democracy. He also raised once again the question of reunification and an end to the Berlin Wall. There was now less reason than ever, he said, for the two Germanys to remain divided. The question tonight is, will the reforms be enough to restore some kind of political stability in East Germany? Well, joining us now from our Nottingham studio is Professor David Charles, an expert on East German politics at Nottingham University. Professor Charles, good evening to you.
Good evening.
First and foremost, what do you make of these remarks by Mr. Schabowski that East Germany is moving towards free elections?
Well, I think he is facing the inevitable. Of course, that doesn't mean to say that this is yet official. It may well be that he wishes to give himself a positive profile so that he is better placed when these reforms come. He is a man who has not really been very popular as head of the Berlin Party organization. I think he's possibly doing that, but inevitably he is right. There will have to be free elections.
Is it also possible, Professor Charles, that he's trying to bolster support for the satellite parties, the sort of lapdogs of the Communist Party in East Germany, at the expense of the new opposition, which may eventually face them in a free election?
Yes, the party's strategy must be that they will try and boost this so-called multi-party system that they have had. They have 4 other parties there, as well as the ruling Socialist Unity Party, and they will be trying to give them a boost, although 3 of them are certainly virtually dead, and this is a way really of drawing away support from the new parties such as New Forum and the Social Democratic Party of the GDR. I don't think they will fool anyone either in East or in West by any such moves.
So in your view, these statements, whatever their motives, whatever the motive behind them, won't stop the exodus, won't stop the street protests?
They won't stop the street protests and they won't stop the exodus if that is all they've got to offer. they have got to make it completely official. Krentz, the head of the party and head of state, has himself got to say quite clearly and unequivocally that free elections are going to be held. And he has got to come forward with some kind of programme of how long that is going to take. The first step, of course, to show their goodwill would be a recognising of the opposition parties, legalising them. They are not legal yet. And then they would take it from there. Chancellor Kohl, as you mentioned, has indicated that if he sees clearly, and only then, that the East German leaders are really on the path to reform and mean business in this way, then West Germany is prepared to give massive aid. Of course, they have been giving aid for many years, but they recognise that they will have to give a massive more amount of aid to stabilise the situation.
Let me just pick up one point you made there, which I think will surprise many people. West Germany's been giving aid to East Germany.
That's right.
What form of aid?
Well, it's taken many forms. They have, for instance, recently, in recent years, been paying to try and help the East Germans to pollute the atmosphere less by giving them equipment to do so for their power stations and factories and so on. They have been paying massive amounts of money for road building in East Germany, through East Germany, from west to east. They have been paying fees for other things to the East German government, like fees for the post office, postal services and so on. And it's often forgotten that millions of West Germans who visit their relatives in the East every year, it's over 5 million, East Germany only has a population of about 16.5 million, over 5 million West German visitors spend a great deal of money. They are, of course, forced to convert a certain minimum sum for every day they spend there. And in any case, those who don't go there do give generously gifts to their East German friends and relatives.
OK, back then to the political scene at the moment, just to summarise what you're saying, if I read you correctly, it will need Mr. Krentz to say we're going to have free elections before A, the people of East Germany believe that it's really going to happen, and B, before Chancellor Kohl will contemplate giving them a single Deutschmark in addition to that which already goes ahead. But what happens if Mr. Krentz goes? Many people are suggesting that he's only a caretaker. What happens if he's replaced by a more reformist character?
I think that would also be a step in the right direction. Krentz, because of his earlier security function, because he lined up with the Chinese hardliners only a short time ago, has very little credibility. People don't believe him, and it will be difficult for him to convince the masses that his party, the Socialist Unity Party so-called, really believes in reform. It is likely that he will have to go. If some other reform-minded leader were to take over, well, that would certainly be another improvement, another step in the right direction.
And if someone of that nature did take over in the short or long term, do you envisage any circumstances when we see the dismantling of the Berlin Wall? Physically, totally unnecessary now anyway, because people can get to the west by a whole variety of other routes. So is there a situation you can envisage where politically it becomes impotent as well?
I think it becomes increasingly necessary. Of course, I think one's got to admit it, that it would be even easier still if there were no Berlin Wall for people to get out. After all, most of them now have to go quite a long way around through Czechoslovakia, although, you know, there are not many bureaucratic obstacles in the way now, but it's still a bit of a journey to go all that way around to get to West Germany. So that if there were no Berlin Wall, it would be just that much easier for even greater masses of people to get out. But I'm sure we are coming to a situation where the Berlin Wall will have to come down. And there have been hints from one or two East German politicians that they, are ready to consider this.
We shall have to await those developments as they proceed, and doubtless you'll come back and tell us about them if and when they happen. Professor Charles, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
In part 2, David Bellamy gives us his verdict on Mrs. Thatcher's plans to save the world from environmental disaster.